My name is Ethan Cole, and I was 7 years old when the Velkari saved my life. I'm 31 now, and I still remember the sound the transport made when it broke apart above Wren's Hollow, a shriek like the sky tearing open. We were colonists. Second wave, out past the perimeter, on a rock the charts called Cassandra 4 and the settlers just called home. My dad worked the atmospheric processors. My mom taught the 12 kids in our settlement in a schoolhouse built from cargo containers. I was one of those 12 when the raiders came. I don't know what the raiders were. Nobody ever got a clean answer. Not even the fleet intelligence officers who spent a decade trying to piece it together. Some kind of scavenger consortium, moving through unclaimed space, taking whatever a colony had that was worth taking and erasing whoever might report it. They hit us at dawn. I remember my mother's hand on my shoulder, shoving me toward the storm cellar, and then I don't remember anything else about her, because that's the last time I saw her. What I remember next is the Velkari. They were already living near us. Not with us, near us. A small enclave, maybe 200 of them. Refugees from some War-III sectors over that had left their homeworld a cinder. Earth's colonial authority had given them squatters' rights on the far ridge in exchange for mineral survey work. We didn't know them well. They were quiet, insectile-looking in a way that used to scare me as a little kid. Tall, narrow, with too many joints in their arms and faces that didn't show emotion the way ours did. My dad used to wave at them across the processing fields. That was about the extent of our relationship with our neighbors. When the raiders' dropships came down, the Velkari had no obligation to us. No treaty bound them to our defense. No blood tied them to ours. They could have sealed their enclave and let Wren's Hollow burn, and no court in any jurisdiction would have called it a crime. They didn't do that. I was in the storm cellar with 6 other kids when the hatch blew open. Not from raiders, but from a Velkari elder named Ashtenya Voir. I remember her voice more than her face, because her voice was the first calm thing I'd heard in an hour. She said, in standard English, rougher than a dictionary, but clearer than any promise I'd heard before or since. Come with me. You are not alone. They walked us out through the crossfire. I found out years later, from the official inquiry transcripts, what that actually meant. 6 Velkari formed a moving wall around 11 human children, absorbing weapons fire meant for us with their own bodies, because they had no armor to spare and no time to find any. 3 of them died in that walk. Ashtenya Voir was one of them. She took a plasma round meant for a girl named Callie Ostrander, and she did it without breaking stride, like it wasn't even a decision, like protecting a child that wasn't hers, from a species that wasn't hers, was simply the thing you did. The only thing that made sense to do. They got us to their enclave's shelter. They held that shelter for 6 more hours against raiders who wanted us gone before fleet response arrived. When the corvettes finally burned atmosphere and the raiders broke off, the Velkari enclave had lost 41 of its 200 people. 41. To protect children who weren't theirs. On a rock that wasn't theirs. For a species they'd known less than 3 years. I was one of 11 kids who walked out of that cellar alive. I am, as far as I know, the only one who ended up in the Colonial Senate gallery 9 years later, when the vote happened. That's not an accident. I made sure I was there. By the time I was 16, the story of Wren's Hollow had made its way through the Colonial Authority, then through Fleet Command, then through the Senate committees that decide what a species owes another species when the ledger gets written. There was a legal question at the center of it, one that had never quite been answered before. What happens when a non-human people spends its own blood, unprompted, unbound by treaty, to save human lives? The Senate debated it for 3 years. I sat through the last 11 months of hearings, first as a witness, then as a spectator who couldn't stay away. I watched men and women in suits argue about precedent and resource allocation, and the risks of setting expectations we couldn't always meet. I understood the arguments. I even respected some of them. But I kept thinking about Ashtenya Voir's voice in that cellar, and how she hadn't waited for a committee to tell her what to do. The vote came on a Tuesday. I remember because I'd taken the day off from my engineering program to be there, and I sat in the gallery with Callie Ostrander, the girl Ashtenya died for. Both of us grown now. Both of us quiet in the way people get when they're about to hear something they've been waiting 9 years to hear. Senator Reyes read the resolution into the record. I still have it memorized, more or less, that the Velkari people, having demonstrated at severe cost to themselves an unprompted commitment to the protection of human life, are hereby recognized as a protected species under the authority and defense of the human colonial fleet, in perpetuity, without condition of reciprocity. Without condition of reciprocity. That was the phrase that mattered. Earth wasn't offering a trade. We weren't saying, we'll protect you if you keep protecting us. We were saying, you didn't have to save our children. And you did. And there is no version of humanity going forward that will let that debt go unpaid. Whatever comes for the Velkari comes through us first. The vote was 71-4. I watched the board light up green, and I watched Callie start crying next to me, and I realized I was crying too, and I didn't care who saw it. 6 months later, I stood on the ridge above what used to be Wren's Hollow. We'd rebuilt it, renamed the school after Ashtenya Voir, and I watched 3 fleet cruisers take up permanent escort position over the reconstructed Velcari enclave. Not because the Velkari were valuable to us strategically, not because they had resources we needed, because 41 of them had died making sure 11 of us didn't have to, and Earth had decided, formally, permanently, on the record, that this was the kind of thing a species remembers. I'm an engineer now. I helped design the shield arrays that ring Velkari settlements across 3 systems, because after Wren's Hollow, humanity didn't just protect them. We invested in making sure it never happened again, to anyone. Every ship in the escort fleet carries the names of the 41 on a plaque near the bridge. I've seen it. I've touched it. People ask me sometimes if I resent it. The idea that my life got turned into policy, into a Senate resolution, into a permanent military obligation. I tell them no. I tell them Ashtenya Voir didn't save me because she calculated the odds. She saved me because it was the right thing to do, and she did it anyway, knowing what it would cost. The least humanity could do was remember that. So we did, and we always will.